All right, at 7 p.m. in Gardner, Kansas, I'd like to call the Gardner City Council meeting to order. Will you please rise as you can for the Pledge of Allegiance?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Councilmember Gorsuch, do you want to come up with me since you're a member, since you're a representative of our board? Sure. Absolutely. All right. So this is a very special event, and I really do appreciate that Rob Kirk could be here for us this evening. For 34 years, he toiled for us first in public safety, and then he became fire chief of Fire District 1 for Johnson County, served with distinction for many years, and this year he has retired. And so we wanted to honor that, and we wanted to give him a little token of our appreciation for his time here. First of all, I'd like to know if you would like to make some comments, some statements. The podium is yours, and then we'll give you your items.
Sure. Well, you know, 34 years, that's quite some time, and I've spent all of it mainly here in Gardner. You know, I started working for the city when I was 16 years old, and so Gardner's a very special place for me. It always has been, and you know, I spent pretty much my whole life with my thumb on some part of this city at one time or another, and I'm very proud of the city. When I first started here, Main Street was 2-lane road, and a lot of memories growing up. 1,500 people. Now we're at 30, 27, wherever it is. Where are we at? I don't know. Just a little over a buttload, and it's amazing to me what's ahead, and we've done a lot of great things through the fire department and our relationship with the city. And one of the most things I'm proud of course, is the Bridging the Gap, the one that got us some notoriety with the old paper here behind me, the great paper that got us in the cartoon section. I always wanted to be part of the cartoon. I ended up getting in there and twice, yep, and I enjoyed that. But we got a lot of things done in that group, and with Mr. Pruding over here and the mayor and this honorary guy sitting behind me, we got a lot of things taken care of that helped this city out. And we didn't care about what was being said on the outside, because we knew that what we were doing inside that meeting or that get-together was important to the city. And we had builders in there, we had developers in there, and we listened to their complaints, and we turned it around, and we let them know that the city was open, because before that the city had a closed sign on the outside of it for some reason or another. It's probably due to the leadership, but we changed that around and got things going, and I'm very, very proud of that, and very proud to work with those people that was in that room, because any answer that needed to be answered was answered right then and there. There was no waiting around. So I'm proud of that, and I'm proud to be able to mentor, or really not even mentor, just look over the firemen that we had when we made the switch over in 2010, November 27th, 2010. It was a great moment for the city of Gardner. There were some friendships that were tarnished, as I've always said, but it was the best thing for Gardner, and I think you can see that now with what is going on with the fire district. It's that thing's taken off like you wouldn't believe. We're building a new station right now. The next station is going to be on 167th, and that's coming real soon with the development out there. And I think they're going to put on 4 more firemen at the beginning of the year, and going to a paramedic trucks at the beginning. I think at the end of this month they're merging with Spring Hill, so that'll start paramedics on rigs. So a lot of good things happening, and I'm very proud to have been part of that. But it's as I said in the letter that I wrote, it's time for me and my health. It's time for me to step aside. You know, I've been battling this since 14, and there's just too much going on now for me to continue to battle it. And my bride back here of 30 years, and I've just decided it's time for me to call it quits. And I hate to. I love the job, and I've done all my crying in silence, and so I don't have to do it out loud. But it's been tough, and it will be tough. And you can't just walk away from being a fireman. You just can't do it. But I'm going to do it and have Jim come out, and a cop. I mean, they can walk away just as you see. He walks away. Now he's a frickin' city administrator. I mean, you don't see that very often, but it tells you how much he cared about PD. But you can't. You just can't do that. But I do appreciate it, Mayor and the City Council. Most of you, the City Council members, I appreciate greatly, and thank you for everything you've done for me. And if you need something, I'm just a phone call away.
All right. Thank you, sir.
Thanks, everybody, for coming.
Thank you, sir. All right, so we've got a couple things for you here. Go, Randy, grab these for you. So we know you like your woodworking.
Sure, yeah.
And so we commissioned a woodworker to put together something in commemoration of your 34 years of service. It's a really nice token, and we really do appreciate all that you've done for the city.
That's very nice.
Not just with the fire district, but before in public safety and keeping us safe, as well as our homes safe from fire. So thank you very much for everything you've done for the city. I think I'll take some pictures here. So there you go, and Randy's got a couple of tokens as well.
There you go, sir.
Those are fireman earrings.
Yeah, it looks like it. I thought this goes on my rearview mirror. Does it?
So thank you again, and we will never forget you. You've been a tremendous asset to our public safety in these areas. So thank you again. Move on to, by the way, thank you to recognize our former councilman in the room, Mr. Melton. So, hello, Mr. Melton. Moving on to public comments. Members of the public are welcome to use this time to make comments about city matters or items on the agenda that are not part of a public hearing. Well, except for Rich, he can't come up and speak at public comments, but the rest of you, if you'd like to come up.
Procedure.
What? So I've got a cock over here on my right, your left, and if you want to keep your comments under 5 minutes, that'd be great. No profanity and no personal attacks. With that being said, the podium is now. You are going to come up.
Good evening, Council and Mayor. My name's Rich Melton. I'm at 202 East Main in Gardner at my office. So anyway, I just want to say not enough can be said about what Chief Kirk has done in the time he is here, and most people don't even realize the kind of things that he brought to the city. He took over a similar situation where when public safety was both police and fire, he inherited a basket of worms and turned it into something pretty spectacular. Most people don't even realize that happened. And then we turned around and did the same thing with the police department. So I don't know that the city will ever really appreciate the impact that he had on that. And I hope that you all can make sure that people know about that besides just a plaque. So, and then I would just say too that anybody who's listening at home or newspaper people want to know kind of really what's been going on around here for the last handful of years, I'm ready to talk. I will tell everything as long as it's printed correctly in the paper.
You have 3 minutes.
3 minutes left. Well, let's talk about the benefits of the addition and subtraction in today's modern society. It's gonna
That's
be
all
fun.
right.
Okay, all right. Thank you, guys.
Thank you, Rich. Anyone else? With no one else coming forward, I'll move on to consent agenda. Is there any member of the council who wishes to remove an item from the consent agenda? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion on the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second. Motion, deed, and second, Winters, that we approve the consent agenda. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, any abstentions? Consent agenda passes. Moving on to committee recommendations. Consider adopting an ordinance amending sections of the Title 17 of the Land Development Code Principal Use Signs. David Knopick, you've been working on this for a long time.
For a while.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
Good evening, Mayor, members of the council. I do have a brief presentation tonight, so we'll go through this relatively quickly, and then I'm here for any questions that you may have. As you know, amendments to the LDC may be initiated by the governing body, the planning commission, or staff. We do follow the prescribed procedures in section 1703, 110 of the LDC when we look at these kinds of amendment situations. This particular case, having to do with off-site signage and what we're going to be referring to as principal use signage, was initiated by the governing body back in June at the request of a sign vendor as well as a property owner here in Gardner. From that, we introduced the item to the Planning Commission initially in August for an initial introduction and discussion of the item so that they were aware of what was going on. We had drafted some thoughts and ideas for them to consider, got their feedback, and then returned to the Planning Commission in September for a public hearing and discussion at that point in time. As a result of the input that was provided, both written and at the public hearing, the Planning Commission had some suggestions for changes to that draft initially. We brought back recommended changes in October, and that is when the Planning Commission deliberated those and then made its recommendation for approval of these amendments. So the chapters that are impacted in the LDC are chapters 17.05 and 17.10. I'm going to briefly give you a high-level overview of these items. So first of all, just the context in general. Currently, we only have 3 billboards, if you will, or off-site advertising signs that are in the area of I-35 adjacent to the city of Gardner. And in fact, only one of those is actually in the city of Gardner, and that's the one furthest north. That's the one that has the lottery sign on it, and right there at the on-ramp of 175th Street. What I tried to provide here was just a brief overview of when these signs were established. The ones in Johnson County were established under Johnson County regulations. They will continue to be under Johnson County regulations until some point in time when that property may be annexed into the city of Gardner. And I think that's an important part of the overall context when we consider looking at this 4.5 to 5 mile corridor along I-35. The red dots that you have there are the rough locations, again, of those 3 signs, 2 of which are on industrially zoned property in the county, 1 of which is on commercially zoned property here in the city of Gardner. The reason I wanted to show you the zoning element of this is that you can see there's a large amount of area here that is still zoned in agricultural or rural residential zoning, as well as residential zoning, some of the medium and lower density residential zoning for the community as shown in the lighter yellow and kind of brown yellow colors. The red areas are the commercially zoned properties. Most of these properties are zoned C3 currently. So when I get to some of the recommendations, you'll understand why we're focused on that C3 zoning district at that point in time. The other element of this that I wanted to highlight is the regulatory jurisdiction, just so that you have a good idea of when we're looking at these signs along I-35, the areas in red are still in the jurisdiction of Johnson County. So anything we do with our sign regulations this evening and moving forward has no application to those areas. Those are in Johnson County, and until they're annexed in the city, they will not fall under our regulations. The areas in blue along I-35 are adjacent to the city limits or along the city limits of the city of Gardner, and then there's a small segment in purple at the far lower left corner there that's adjacent to the city of Edgerton. So just to provide you that context along the corridor. The other part that we have to take into consideration is that these types of signs are regulated by the state of Kansas as well as Johnson County. We can be more restrictive but not less restrictive than the state regulations. So that was a guiding factor as to some of the recommendations that we made throughout this process, gaining an understanding of what was applicable through the Beautification Act at the state level was critical. The option we have here, though, with the county is we can be less or more restrictive than the county. So they have no guidance over the area in the city limits, and therefore we can set those regulations, any parameters we want to outside of the Johnson County regulations. In regard to the city of Gardner, this all falls under the Unified Development Code or the Land Use Code, as we've talked about Land Development Code. You can see this as affecting zoning districts as well as use standards and some of the building and sign standards that we already have within the community here today. One of the unique things about our LDC or our Land Development Code is that we do not allow for off-site signage or billboards in the city of Gardner currently. That is based on some messaging content. When I get to the end of the presentation, I'll show you the piece that we're actually removing from the code that then opens up the opportunity for the amendments for these types of signs. The other thing that I wanted to make sure we highlighted here for just a minute was, if you'll remember when we did the last round of LDC amendments back earlier in 2021 here, we did allow for some administrative as well as other adjustments by the Planning Commission. We increased the level of administrative adjustments that we could make. So when we look at these amendments, when they apply to the physical nature of the signs, the setbacks, the sizes and things like that, when these permits come in, we do have the capability to flex with property demands or needs that may be out there, physical characteristics, if you will. So we may be able to accommodate some of that without having to go to a fully blown planned district with a planned development process. So for Chapter 1705, the zoning districts and use standards, the big thing here is that we're establishing two sign categories, if you will, ancillary signs and principal use signs. Principal use signs are really intended to address off-site advertising, if you will. It has to do with the idea that that sign is not associated with other uses or accessory uses that are on the property. It's simply a sign structure at that point, and its content, its message content is not affiliated with other uses that are on the property. Whereas the ancillary signs, that's what you're used to seeing with most businesses. Those are the things that are the wall signs and the pole signs and things like that that might go in front of the Quick Trip or some other element that's in the community. To do this then in Table 5-2 in the use table, we grouped these two types of signs under communications and utilities, and then we indicated where they were seen as accessory uses and where they would be permitted outright. So in this set of amendments, one of the things that we're doing here is the principal use signs would only be allowed in the C3, the M1, and the M2 district. What's important about this is that the state statutes only allow for these types of signs to be in either commercially zoned property or industrially zoned property. The reason we selected the C3 property is because that's our most intensive land use district. So it's appropriate for this type of use to be located in the C3 district, and it is the most prevalent of the commercial districts that's along the I-35 corridor currently. Some other features to this I've just briefly talked about. The sign amendments would allow these types of signs, principal use signs, in the C3, M1, and M2 districts. They would be allowed on property abutting and adjacent to I-35 only. They would not be allowed along the interchange ramps, the acceleration or deceleration lanes, or for a distance of 500 feet beyond the ends of such lanes. So The idea is not to have this distraction right up on that interchange and on that ramp segment. So in fact, this was a suggestion that came to us through the sign vendor initially. They were suggesting that we had this kind of separation from those elements of I-35. The other thing that we've included here is vehicular access must be provided from the nearest roadway other than I-35. This is for public safety purposes. So if there were an incident out at that sign, whether it's during a construction process or they're changing the messaging, or let's say somebody gets out there and does something foolish and we have to get emergency vehicles out there, we need some way to get there versus off-roading it. So the other element then in chapter 17.10 on principal signs is separation between the signs. We are recommending a 600-foot separation for non-electric and digital signs, non-electric, non-digital LED signs, and 1,000 feet between the electric, digital, and LED signs. So both types of those signs would be allowed, but the separation distances are greater for the electronic signs than they are for the non-electronic signs. This is a slightly greater separation distance than what the state has. State requires 500 feet. 600 feet was suggested in the discussions, and we felt comfortable with the 600 feet in this particular case. One differentiation I will make here is that the separation distance is measured along the I-35 center line, so it would be separation from the closest elements of each sign. So if it's a V-type sign, it wouldn't be from the centers of the sign, it would be off of the wing to the wing of the next sign. So that's how we would look at it. Total display area is 750 square feet has been recommended, facing in the same direction. So this allows for signage on both sides of the sign without a problem. And the maximum dimensions would be 15 feet by 50 feet. And that equates to the 750 feet of square feet of display area. Maximum height of the sign would be allowed is 30 feet. Staff had some concerns. If you go back to that zoning map, there's quite a bit of residential property along I-35. So we had concerns about how high a 50-foot sign might be in relationship to visibility to some of that residential development. So our initial recommendation was 30 feet. Through the discussion with the Planning Commission, we then added to that in the draft that it could go up to 50 feet through a conditional use permit process. So if somebody wanted to go to 50 feet, they could bring their proposal through the Planning Commission and it would be evaluated as a conditional use permit for that height adjustment. What's critical there is that there are topographic differences to take into consideration on various parcels of property. This gives some flexibility, but then also allows the city to be sensitive to those residential uses that may be nearby. As far as setbacks, we are recommending a 15-foot setback from the I-35 right-of-way. I have worked for other jurisdictions where there are 0 setbacks. In fact, the county does not have a setback and the state doesn't require a setback. We felt 15 feet was a comfortable setback after discussions through the Planning Commission, primarily because many times you might get a utility easement that wants to be on that side of the right-of-way for the interstate, and they need that 15 or 20 feet so that they can acquire that easement without having to pay the cost of moving that sign. And also this allows for potential expansion of the right-of-way, at least in a slight manner if it's ever needed. In regard to the residential property, you can see the separation distances. Again, this is having to do with our sensitivity of the viewing of these signs from residential property that may be adjacent or nearby. So we've put on into effect here through the amendments a 500-foot separation from residentially zoned property for the non-electric signs and a 1,000-foot separation from property zoned residential for the electric signs. The types of signs that you're likely to see out here are going to be pole or monument style. They would be subject to the other regulations that we have in the LDC for those types of signs. So there may be some requirements regarding some landscaping around the signs. When these signs are constructed, they do disturb the property. Obviously, we're not looking for shade trees like oaks that are going to go in front of the signs. We'll be looking for some reestablishment, though, of the vegetation and landscaping around that sign base as part of this process. We also wanted to address lighting so that we minimize any kind of glare to the roadway in particular. We don't want to create any traffic concerns from a safety standpoint. And then also we have some standards in there for construction and maintenance. One of the critical items here is that when a permit is issued for this type of sign, it'll have a 5-year renewal process. And what that is going to allow us to do is in that 5-year period, or at the end of that 5-year period, a new application is filed with a structural engineer report to tell us that the sign is still in good condition. We've all seen some of those signs over years just kind of erode in their condition. The intent here is primarily to get that condition report and that structural report that says it's a good sign and it can stay in effect. So that's the intent of the renewal process for that signage. Again, this would be subject to all applicable state and federal regulations beyond those that we've talked about here. And then I wanted to lastly just point out the piece of this that has to do with a section of code that we're removing, and that has to do with a standard that's applicable to all signs. And it states any sign with a business message shall be located on the site of the business activity. Since some recent Supreme Court rulings on sign messaging have occurred, we cannot regulate signs based on their message. So that's why you're getting a proposal like this tonight that's very focused on the physical nature of the sign, the size, the type, the location. It's not focused on that messaging piece of it. And in fact, as part of the amendments, this language would be dropped from our current code. So that would bring us into compliance with those Supreme Court rulings at this point. With this, I'll just note that the Planning Commission has recommended approval of the proposed amendments, and we'd like you to consider the adoption of ordinance number 2722. And stand ready for any questions.
Thank you, Mr. Novick. Appreciate it. I will note that the applicant, Fred Winkert, from Winkert Billboards is here. If you'd like to ask any questions of Mr. Winkert, thank you for coming. Any public comments on committee recommendation item number 1?
Good evening again, Council and Mayor. I just like to say I like signs. I think signs are good. So I think more signs are better. I think it's good if you're going to put them on the other side of I-35 too. You get it in before the houses get built. So I think kudos to you guys for coming up with this early. Hi, Scott Smith. Anyway, thanks a lot and have a great evening.
Thank you, Mr. Melton. 202 East Main, right?
Yeah, same one as before. I haven't moved yet.
Okay. All right, anyone else? All right, questions for Mr. Novick on this proposed ordinance? Yeah.
No question. I just appreciate all the work that I know this was a lot of work to put this together, and your staff and the Planning Commission, they've done a very thorough job, and it looks great. So
I think I want to congratulate the Planning Commission in this because they were engaged in it throughout the process and listened to a lot of the public comments. We did receive letters also that were given out at the Planning Commission meeting itself, and so their discussions really helped to form a few changes that we made as part of the effort between September and October.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, I appreciate all the hard work as well. And the question that I had for you is Lynn Baker in his note suggested that the city may put a welcome to Gardner sign on his property adjacent to I-35. Is that being considered? I think that's a great kind of token, if you will.
So that's a separate item from this, obviously. There has not been any discussion since that note has been provided to us with any specifics. That would have to be worked out, again, between the city and that property owner. So,
okay, thank you.
I think he was mentioning a monument sign.
yeah, and I think that's what he was referring to. But again, that all plays into the process of zoning the property appropriately, and then how is that sign classified? Because that may actually be more of a government sign, as a welcome sign versus a business type sign. So there's a lot of other nuances that we'd have to look at as to how it would effectively be placed on the property.
Well, I trust you'll work out it.
We'll try to figure it out.
Thank you, Councilman. Appreciate it. Anyone else? Yes, Councilman.
Yeah, I just want to say I really appreciate the 5-year renewal thing, because that was one of my biggest concerns, is that we make a decision on this and then 20, 30 years down the road, this governing body is getting cussed out that there's decrepit billboards along I-35. So having that renewal process really makes me feel better about all of this.
Thanks.
Anything else? Well, I'll kind of piggyback on what Odo said. Good work on this. I know this was kind of sticky for a while,
Yep.
so I appreciate your perseverance on that.
No
I'm sure
problem.
the applicant does too, so, thank you again. All right, no other discussion, I'm gonna entertain a motion on ordinance number 2722.
So moved. Second.
Motion Gregorczyk, second Deaton, that we adopt ordinance number 2722, an ordinance amending the Land Development Code of the City of Gardner, Kansas by amending the sections of Title 17 of the Gardner Municipal Code. Any discussion? City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorczyk,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Ordinance number 2722 passes. New business item number 1. Consider adopting a resolution amending resolution number 2079 to authorize an increase in the cost of improvements to certain main trafficways financed through the Assurance of General Obligation Bonds. Matt Wolf, good evening. We may have questions.
Good evening, Mayor, Council. On March 1st, 2021, the City Council passed Resolution 2079, authorizing the city to construct certain main traffic ways and authorizing the issuance of general obligation bonds, an amount not to exceed $2.21 million. On November 1st, 2021, the City Council passed Resolution 2095, providing authority to award the contract with KDOT and commitment of city funds for US 56 reconstruction project. The city's portion of cost was estimated to be at roughly $2.65 million. The proposed resolution amends Resolution 2079 and formally identifies the issuance of an amount not to exceed $2.745 million in general obligation bonds as a financing method, and indicates the city's intent to reimburse itself for improvements from the proceeds of the bonds in compliance with IRS regulations. So in short, if you remember at the beginning of the year, we sought authority to issue debt to reimburse ourselves for our share of this project. Well, the cost, if you remember at the last meeting, came in higher than expected. So this is us changing Resolution 2079 to give us that extra authority to issue debt.
All right, thank you very much, Finance Director Wolf. Any comments on new business item number 1 that's not named Rich Melton?
I have questions.
Seeing none, we're going to ask, anybody have any questions for Director Wolf? Or staff?
Matt, I guess my question is, how much more can we go back to the well?
If you remember, basically this is going to be paid from special highway, and while that fund has, I mean, we've had more projects over the years, so obviously we have a lot of debt building up in that fund. Going up a few $100,000 for this project isn't going to have that big of an impact because it's going to be stretched over 10, 15 years depending on what the term is. So this increase isn't going to have a huge impact on the fund, but I do caution, like going forward in future budgets, we should definitely continue to look at that street highway fund and make sure it's at the appropriate level.
Yeah, that was my next question, so, thank you.
Yeah, I've kind of similar kind of question myself, and that is with the additional roadways that are coming into the city, specifically things like Charles Parkway and other large thoroughfares, and also other roads that we've annexed into the city. That might put some more pressure on the special highway fund now. So I'm assuming there is a plan to kind of mitigate that.
There is, and that's going to be part of the next budget discussion. I assume that basically street construction projects and also sewer will take a lot of the CIP discussion.
Great. Yeah, because this is an increase in $535,000 from our original estimate, and we obviously know the cost of materials and manpower is increasing, so that's probably a lot of it. But we just want to keep a lid on that if possible. It's a significant increase. That's about 20% on the total cost of the project from the city's perspective.
And this is something kind of beyond our control. I mean, this is essentially a KDOT project. They bid it out. We realize this is also a very important project for the city.
Absolutely.
So,
Okay, great. Any other questions? All right, take a motion on resolution number 2096.
So moved.
Second.
Motion Deaton, second Baldwin, that we adopt resolution number 2096, a resolution amending resolution number 2079 of the City of Gardner, Kansas, to authorize an increase in the cost of improvements to certain main trafficways financed through the issuance of general obligation bonds of the city, all pursuant to KSA 12-685 et sec. Discussion. City Clerk, will you please call the roll?
Councilmember Winters,
Yes.
Councilmember Gregorsic,
Yes.
Councilmember Baldwin,
Yes.
Councilmember Deaton,
Yes.
Councilmember Roberts,
Yes.
All right, Resolution 2096 passes. Hopefully we won't have any more financing issues on this road. The last one, I hope. All right, that is it for regular business. Move on to council updates. Staff kind of anything for council. I'll start with our Deputy City Administrator, who I never start with, so I wanted to give her a chance.
All right. I do have something tonight.
Yeah, you see?
As requested by the governing body, Communications Manager Danica Marshall-Okendo put together a brief survey regarding snow removal in the downtown area. The Chamber then communicated with business owners in this area regarding the survey, including providing paper copies to those who did not have an email address on file with the Chamber. The survey opened on Wednesday, November 3rd, and staff received 8 total responses to the survey. The main takeaways are as follows. 50% of respondents would like the current time frame of 48 hours for snow removal to remain in place, while each of the other options, 6 hours, 12 hours, and 24 hours, were selected by one respondent each. One person did not select a response. Among those who provided comments, nearly all were related to concerns regarding challenges for snow removal relating to business operating hours. For example, while a business that is open daily and for longer hours wanted a short window for snow removal, respondents who selected 48 hours and provided comments expressed concerns about requiring snow removal in a shorter time frame should the snow event occur outside of their normal hours of operation. Of the businesses that responded, 50% are open traditional business hours of Monday through Friday from morning through early evening. Only one responding business is open daily. And 75% of respondents have not yet made arrangements for snow removal, and 62.5% expressed interest in potential partnering opportunities with other downtown businesses.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it. Any questions for Amy on this one? Sounds like they want to keep the time frame, and they'd be interested in doing some partnering with other downtown businesses. But the fact we only got 8 responses seems to be a little low.
You got roughly how many do you think surveyed?
I am not certain because Jason Camus from the Chamber kind of managed that process for us, as they have the list of our downtown businesses. They emailed it out to anyone that was on their list, and they did provide several paper copies, which we received one of those paper copies back.
To me, yeah, go on. I thought you were raising your hand. Well, I'm just thinking from the standpoint of policy. It's difficult to do policy when you only have 8 businesses that respond out of, I would say conservatively, 3 times as many that are on this corridor.
Sounds like they spoke loud and clear. They're good. What they're doing with 48 hours. Otherwise, they would have responded.
Well, it wasn't the 48 hours. It was really more around the issue of how they would pay for their snow removal.
Well, that wasn't in the survey. The survey was about the time frame. So that's what they responded about, or didn't. So they must be happy with 48 hours by and large.
Okay. Is there any intention on the part of the Chamber of Commerce to look at the other issue of importance, which was the how to deal with snow removal and the cost of that? Yes.
So the snow removal guy from Crown Realty wants to talk.
He's the snow removal guy for Crown Realty?
The official, it's me again.
Rich.
Same address. So obviously my company works down here, but I'm not speaking for them, I'm speaking for me. I would be careful as a governing body about giving special favors to anybody downtown that you're not going to also offer to the citizenry. So that would be like co-opting and working with and doing all those things, because as soon as you open that door, everybody else is going to say, well, I want the city to come and help me with my driveway and my sidewalk. So just something to be thinking about, governing body. So glad I could be here for you.
We already decided.
Yeah, we're
Right.
not doing that.
Right.
So we're
Just
gonna,
making sure. If you were at the last meeting, Mr. Melton, you would know that we.
Just making sure.
I assume he's referencing that.
Oh, no, I'm saying, so whether
So
they-
we're going to continue to work with Jason,
Yes.
and try to get people connected that want to be amongst themselves to arrange for snow removal. The city will not be involved in that, but we can
Correct.
help facilitate it. And I think the discussion will come up again once we have a first snow event. So
Oh, I'm sure.
we'll follow up on that as well.
Okay. All right. Any questions from anybody? Okay. All right, thank you very much, Amy, appreciate it. Finance Director Wolf, you have anything else for us?
Nothing tonight.
Okay, City Clerk?
Nothing tonight?
Do we have times for the interview team to discuss?
Not yet.
Not yet, okay. So be on the lookout. We've got one other candidate we're going to be interviewing for the Planning Commission position. So. Chief Belcher.
Briefly, this Thursday, we have the 2022 Casey Air Show kickoff meeting. Seems like we just finished the last one, and we're getting ready to start the next one.
They
So
never
it's
end.
This Thursday at the Justice Center, we'll be talking about 2022.
Great, excellent. Gons Garcia.
Nothing tonight.
Nothing tonight. Okay. We might have something for you later. Just let you know. Give you a heads up. Parks and Rec Director Jason Bruce.
Yes, just briefly, reminder, believe it or not, Christmas in the Park is right around the corner. It'll be Monday, November 29th, over at Cornerstone Park. We're still in the process of working out details, but we're hoping it'll be similar to how it was in 2019.
Great, excellent. Dave Nopick, anything else for us?
Just very briefly, the Planning Commission meeting for November got rescheduled to November 29th. We received a revised concept drawing for the one item that was going to be in that meeting on Friday. So we're not sure we will have a Planning Commission meeting. So stay tuned. You may get a cancellation on that as a result of changes to the application that we've received. So, and we may also see, as a result of that, a potential rescheduling of the December meeting, which was originally scheduled for December 27th, which may be very difficult for us to get a quorum. So we'll try to keep you up to date on the dates and any changes that are made by the Planning Commission.
All right, thank you. Kellen Headley, last but not least.
Nothing tonight.
All right, nothing tonight. Actually, not last, because I've got our city attorney, who's got nothing, I'm sure.
Nothing.
Exactly. And, city administrator?
So I'll do this for Kellen. So KDOT sent out a notice that they were having staffing shortages that may impact projects across the state, but Public Works followed up on that, and we're not encountering that at the local level, so we should be fine.
Good.
So then Danica wanted me to pass on that she handed out 90 gifts to our veterans over the past week.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. Thank you. And thank you for all those who served in our community. We have a higher percentage of veterans in this community than almost any other community in Johnson County. They like living here, and we like having them. And so thank you for all those who served, and, including, Mr. Melton didn't get anything, but he's
I did.
Oh, you did get something?
I just happened to come in and get some delicious popcorn and a
Good, good.
thing for my Christmas tree.
Excellent. Excellent. You don't live here anymore. We let you
I
have it.
haven't left.
Okay, council, anything for staff? I'm going to start on my left with Councilwoman Deaton.
Nothing tonight, thanks.
Nothing tonight. Councilwoman Roberts.
Well, I don't have anything really, but Jason said that the Christmas in the Park would be similar to 2019. I think the mayor had to sing then, and that was kind of, I don't know. I don't know if that's good or bad.
Well, it's Todd's.
No, it's still.
Oh, it's still. Oh,
yeah.
God.
That was because the drones were falling out of the sky.
No, that was 2018. Get it right.
Well, it was 2 years in a row.
That was 2018.
Every year.
So maybe, I mean, not that you weren't an excellent singer, but maybe we can make sure we have everything kind of lined
Oh,
up. So we
no.
don't have to-
I think we got this.
Okay, good.
Actually,
Thank you.
Jason's got this. So.
Thank you.
Councilwoman Gorsick.
No.
Nothing. Okay. Council Vice President.
I don't have anything in particular.
And you really drew that out, didn't you? All right, Council President.
Yes. Got nothing.
Okay, well, I happen to have something. And I'll make this brief because, yeah, I've been very brief at this position for a long time. I'm going to indulge a little bit here, all right? when I pick up this gavel and put it down again, it's going to be the last time I have the privilege of doing that as your mayor. We've been through a lot. First year was tough, a little bit tougher than we would normally expect. Last year and a half has been very tough with coronavirus and other situations that have occurred. I cannot be prouder of the staff who has worked tirelessly through all this, having to deal with work disruptions, having to work from home, and over general turmoil, and not knowing what was going on when it came to coronavirus, and having to create policy on the fly, and still be able to provide the same level of service that we've been accustomed to in this community for quite a while. Over the 4 years that I've been in this seat, there have been some amazing things happening in this community, and it couldn't have been done without staff. It could not have been done without the men and women that are sitting around this dais right now, who are representing all departments of the city. For that, I want to give you a special thanks and a round of applause. Thank you very much for the work that you've done. The really cool thing is that we will have total continuity still during this process, because the guy sitting to my right, who's sitting current council president, will be taking this seat in 3 weeks, and I'm looking forward to working with him as a member of the council still, and keeping Gardner moving and blazing new trails, and really seeing the fruit of our effort over the last 4 years come to fruition, especially on the other side of I-35. So I want to thank all those who have made this happen. I want to thank Councilmember Gorsuch for his service, for his time on the dais, and for his contribution. It's been significant, so I want to recognize that as well. Thank you for the community for allowing me to serve in this seat, and keep the ball rolling. And with that, I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Gorsuch, second Deaton, that we adjourn. All those in favor indicate by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Any abstentions? We are adjourned.